So just over 12 years ago, Scientific American dedicated a cover article to a robot with a caption from Bill Gates suggesting that every home would have a robot soon, just like they have a PC. So we are really in the age of robots. No, not yet. And why? Because robotics technology are not sufficiently advanced. Robots are not adaptable enough, are not autonomous enough, are not compliant enough, and not smart enough. The problem is that robotics needs completely new abilities. Robots need to be able to evolve, adapt, grow, like the natural systems are able to do. And so, this is why roboticists are looking at nature to develop robots that are more able to operate outside the factory, in a real and unstructured environments. And so, our idea, in fact, was to take inspiration by plants. And I would like to share with you 3 developments that my group and we work in. First, how we develop a plantoid, the first robot inspired by plants. Second, how we develop a self-growing adaptable robot inspired by climbing plants. And finally, how we manage the generation energy from leaves. So moving from nature to engineering is tough. The first time that I proposed plantoids to the scientific community, people look at me as I was mad, and probably they were right. And they say, plants don't move. What can we learn from plants to develop new robots? Well, actually, we can learn a lot from plants. Like with animals, first we have to identify the biological principle that we want to imitate from this system from plants. Then we have to select the key principle at the base of such functionality, such as materials, movement, sensing capability, control, intelligence. And then we try to translate them by simplify into engineering specification. But what is great is, since these robots are deeply based on biological principle, they can be used by scientists as a tool to validate their hypothesis on the biological system that they take as a model. So at the end, we improve the knowledge on the biological system, and we develop at the same time innovative robots. But the robots developed within this area are mostly inspired by animals, the so-called animaloids. And this animal-like robot can, swim, fly, run, even crawl. But for the first time, as I was saying, I propose plants as a model in robotics. And in particular, I was interested in roots to develop an autonomous robot that moves in soil for exploration. So, why plant for robotics? Plants and their roots are the living organism more suited to move in soil. Soil is a very extreme environment where pressure and friction are very high, even in just a few centimeters of depth. And roots can overcome the pressure because they grow at the tip. So tip add the cells by division, absorb water from the environment, and then push the tip in the soil. So the only part that is moving is the tip. The rest of the body doesn't move, so no friction. And root and tip are amazing because they can sense gravity, humidity, chemicals. They can avoid obstacles and dangerous pollutants. And they can grow following or escaping from environmental stimuli. And this behavior and nemetropism can be positive or negative. And so, for example, a root can grow following a humidity gradient. This is positive and is called hydrotropism. But also root create a network to be more efficient in soil exploration, and also network to communicate with other plants, but also with other organisms, such as fungi and bacteria. So with my group, we try to translate all these features in robotics technology. And was one part that was really difficult to implement was this growing capability, understanding then that the growing at the tip level is the secret. And so after several trials and failures, we implemented this growing, miniaturizing a 3D printed machine inside an artificial tip. So this mini printer consists of a motor that pulls a filament for a spool and the gears to deposit the new layer in contact with the tip, like the natural system. And so inside the tip, there is a resistor that reach a high temperature, more than 200 degrees for a few seconds, and so the material becomes sticky and can adhere to the previous layer. And layer by layer, the robot is able to create its own body. So we propose a completely new paradigm in robotics, which is moving by growing. The direction growing is given by the sensor integrating the tip, so the robot can sense humidity, gravity, temperature, chemicals like phosphate and nitrogen. And also we implemented the tropism, so the robot autonomously decides the direction of growing, so it can follow or escape for environmental stimuli. But we also developed another version of the robot, imitating the passive adaptation, the route to the external environment. So without any sensory feedback, the robot is able to adapt to the external environment. And in this way, we exploit the melting properties of the material, and in this way, we reduce the complexity of the control. And this is the robot. So the robot is made by a trunk in which we put the materials that are required for the route, the electronics, and also we develop branches with several artificial leaves that are also inspired by the natural materials, the plant materials, that are able to interact with the changing humidity condition in air. And so there are materials that absorb and dissolve water and other material that play the movement. And so this material can work as a sensor and actuator at the same time. And then, as I say, the several routes with the sensor and the tropism. Some tropism are positive, like the chemotropism, hydrotropism. The robot can avoid obstacle and follow the gradient. And also, of course, we implement this growing capability. So layer by layer, the robot can move inside the soil. But very important, we also implemented the intelligence of plant and the robot, so the robot can and the roots can communicate each other to be more efficient in soil exploration. And this is another form of emergent intelligence, so without a brain. This is the point. So let's move on the second research area, climbing plants. Climbing plants are quite peculiar because they don't develop a very sophisticated root apparatus. They don't develop a strong trunk. But they use most of the energy that they have to go faster than the other plants towards sunlight. And in order to avoid to collapse under their own weight, they need to anchor. So they develop different strategies like adhesive pads. They develop spines or tendrils to anchor the body to other plants or walls or also poles. So starting from these features, we developed the first tendril-like soft robot that is able to coil and uncoil around the support. This robot is actuated by osmosis, and in fact, in plants don't have a muscle, but they can control the stiffness playing with the water turgor, with the content of water inside the tissues. And in the same way, our robot can regulate the water content, so it can regulate the turgor inside the body and can anchor the body with a very low power consumption. But also, as I said, we are investigating energy from plants. In particular, we try to extract energy from their leaves. In fact, the natural leaves can function as a triboelectric capacitor that generate energy if mechanically stimulated. With my group, in fact, we discovered that if we touch a leaf with a soft material like a silicone, we produce a charge on the surface that are compensated by opposite charge inside the leaves. The quantity of energy that we can extract, we can produce, strictly depended by the material that we use, by the frequency, by impact force, contact area. But what was quite surprising for us was that we demonstrated that with just one single leaf, we can produce more than 150 volts that are sufficient to power simultaneously 100 LED. And also, we develop an hybrid system that is made by natural and artificial leaves that are moved by wind. And so also with this hybrid system, we power LED and we demonstrate the feasibility of our ideas. In the future, the goal, in fact, is to use this hybrid system to power the sensors, lights, even simple robots. And so to be more, sustainable and also to reduce the negative impact of technology on nature. This is the final goal. But what can we do with this kind of plant-inspired technology? What is the application that we have in mind for plantoids for the future? So first of all, as I said, agriculture. So the robot can detect water, but also chemicals like phosphate, ammonium, nitrogen. That these chemicals are very important for the photosynthesis of the plants. But if they are used in excess, they can contaminate the water basin. So they need to be controlled and monitored very often. So imagine to have a lot of plantoids that move on the surface, and instead to move on the surface, they move underground. For environmental monitoring, they can detect pollutants, radon, and have an intelligence on board. But also space application. This is another goal. We start actually with this application because roots are important not only for exploration, but also for anchoring. So roots grow, anchor the structure, then plant can start to grow. And anchoring is an open issue in space missions. So this kind of plant technology could help maybe also for space application. And then this kind of self-growing, adaptable robot could also move among debris, looking for survival, or also used by archaeologists that use this technology to find out what is under the surface. But more than this, in our city, we could consider to grow the infrastructure in the future. So we can grow our bridge, pipes, to be less invasive on our ecosystem. So I like to define this robotics from nature to nature. So this kind of bio-inspired robot could help in better understanding living organisms and their features, and also, in help humans in being more sustainable. But very important, this new knowledge means promoting respect for the others, for other forms of life. So is this goal visionary, a little bit ambitious? Yes, of course. And this is why it's the perfect goal. Thank you so much.